This is Matt Dernan, Global Head of Insights and Consultancy at the British Council, here with a video update on COVID-19 impacts to UK higher education. Our last update looked at perceptions of Chinese students who had planned to study abroad this year. We found that a large portion of respondents were sitting on the fence, unsure if they would keep or cancel their plans. This week, we turn our attention to South Asia, with fresh survey results from India and Pakistan. For context, as of the 2018-19 academic year, India ranked as the third largest source of international enrollments in UK universities, while Pakistan ranked 20th. While they send a smaller number of students to the UK than China, both countries stand out because of their potential growth in outbound study. The number of UK-bound students from both countries fell precipitously after the tightening of UK study visa regulations, and particularly after the removal of the post-study work visa category. But the decline ended in 2015, and growth in UK study visa issuance has since resurged. The rebound has been particularly sharp in India, where visa issuance soared by over 200% from 2015 to 2019. We also expected that the return of UK post-study work visas offered through the graduate route would significantly boost applications for both markets. Google search trends from India show a surge in interest related to UK study, starting last year after the announcement of the graduate route. Events since January, however, have of course upended many of our assumptions as to how this academic year would play out. So how is COVID-19 weighing on the minds of students who had planned to study abroad, and how do their sentiments compare to the trends we saw in China? To find out, we distributed our survey on the 31st of March and collected responses until the 17th of April. In total, we received 1,493 valid responses across the two countries. The status of our respondents' study plans showed that many are at an earlier stage in the student journey than our sample group in the China survey. In India, only 39% of respondents had applied to study overseas, while 28% had done so in Pakistan. That's a lot lower than what we saw in the earlier China survey, where 71% had already applied. But this pattern fits with our experience working with universities. While some will have already received the large majority of their applications from these markets, other universities, particularly many from outside the Russell Group, tend to receive a large proportion of their total applications from South Asia in May and June. With that background out of the way, let's take a look at the key findings. The first striking thing about the survey results is a bit of good news. When we asked respondents how likely they were to cancel or delay their overseas study plans, around 40% from both countries told us they are not at all likely to do so. By comparison, only 12% of Chinese students reacted with the same degree of certainty. And a much smaller percentage of Indian and Pakistani respondents seem to be sitting on the fence about their plans. Yet it's worth noting that 29% of Indian respondents and 35% of Pakistani respondents told us that they are at least somewhat likely to cancel their plans or that they have already done so. While there are many things about the current situation that those of us working in higher education cannot control, we need to understand the concerns of students so that we can address what we are able to. As in our China survey, we asked respondents how concerned they were about 5 key issues when considering their overseas study plans. Indian and Pakistani respondents showed strong concerns around health and well-being and personal safety, though to a less extreme degree than our Chinese respondents did. These concerns are nevertheless still there. Respondents from Pakistan and India also demonstrated more intense worries about financial pressures. This is something to watch closely over the next month. As the economic impact of the pandemic intensifies in both countries, we would expect a rise in pressures to defer study offers. Finally, we ask all respondents about which of the major English-speaking study destinations is the most attractive, given the pandemic. Both the UK and none of the above were popular choices amongst respondents from all countries. Australia and Canada were, however, popular choices amongst our respondents in Pakistan. Notably, very few respondents saw the United States as most attractive. If this sentiment holds, the UK could see a boost in late applications. It's too soon to say exactly how students will alter their plans over the coming months, but we can already identify some risks if the patterns identified so far persist. If student mobility from South Asia holds up much better than that from China, complex challenges will emerge for some institutions. UK enrollments from all 3 countries are growing, but each to the benefit of a different set of universities. If we break down the growth in new UK enrollments from China over the last 3 years of data, we can see that Russell Group universities have been the primary beneficiaries of the growth trend. Meanwhile, non-Russell Group institutions' enrollments of Indian students have grown much faster. On the surface, a scenario with a large decline in Chinese outbound study and a slighter decline from major South Asian markets would appear to favor non-Russell Group institutions. But there's another complicating factor, and that is visa compliance. Aside from sending a large number of students, China presents almost no visa risk to study sponsors. The Home Office publishes data on grant rates for study visas. These figures don't give us a full picture of visa compliance risks, but they give us a rough idea of which markets tend to pose challenges for keeping total visa rejections under the 10% mark, over which a license for recruiting international students could be suspended. While India's aggregate visa grant rate is not especially low, we know from experience that some universities have found it challenging from a compliance perspective. And the challenge in Pakistan is much more obvious in the data. The large number of Chinese students dilutes visa compliance risks across universities' portfolios. If Chinese students make up a smaller proportion of applicants this year, it would expose some universities to compliance risks, limiting their ability to compensate with increased recruitment in other markets. It's hard for us to say how widespread this problem could be, but it highlights the fact that the emerging risks to UK student recruitment this year are multidimensional and rapidly evolving. In summary, the number of Indian and Pakistani respondents to our survey who are firmly intent on keeping their study plans this year is encouraging. But we can't overlook the fact that the proportion of them that are at least somewhat likely to delay or cancel is not small. The global situation is rapidly changing, and it's too soon to say how students will respond. But this will become clear over the next 2 months, and in the meantime, we'll continue to track student perceptions. While there's a lot we can't control right now, we need to be as proactive as possible in addressing student concerns. The concerns that Indian and Pakistani students raised are not substantially different from those that Chinese students raised in our earlier survey, though the financial worries do appear more acute and are only likely to intensify over the coming weeks. This means that some institutions will be forced to make tough decisions about which is more preferable, deferrals or discounting through scholarships and bursaries. And finally, the risks to our universities are not limited to the financial impact of weaker international student recruitment this year. An increasingly complex set of issues will have to be managed, and decisions about them made quickly. We hope to help you navigate these challenges as smoothly as possible by providing a steady stream of intelligence about how student sentiments are changing, and we're currently in the process of rolling the survey out globally. Based on feedback from the last presentation, we've also added 2 questions, one about perceptions of various intake options, and the other regarding expectations for pricing if a semester is delivered online. We'll have those results for China and most of East Asia in the next week. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to get in touch. Thanks for watching.